Tribe, Book 2, Todd Mills Mystery. Author, R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher, Scrib Pub, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 29. On her knees before the wooden chair, her hands clasped in front of her, Suzanne bowed her head in the dim light of the prayer closet. Oh, please, God, the Father, show me the way. Lead me to the best decision, the correct one. My baby's gone. I'm worried about my husband, and here I kneel, begging for your mercy, your understanding, your wisdom. Show me the divine path. I've been your obedient disciple. I'll always be your humble slave. Just give me a heavenly sign. Show me what to do. Guide me in your divine way. Ever since her father had left earlier this morning for a meeting of the elders, Suzanne had been in the tiny room, a space not more than 3 by 4 feet. She'd been in here, the dim bulb burning, the door shut, praying for insight, begging for help, hoping the right decision would come to her. If she was going to do it at all, now was the time. Her knees burned with pain, but she wasn't going to get up. She wasn't going to leave this hole-like room until she knew, until she'd been given an answer, and it had better come soon, because what did she have, another 20 minutes before her father returned? He'd already been gone almost 2 hours. She moved her right knee across the wooden floor, felt a splinter slide into her skin. Ouch! And then she slumped to the side and fell against the wall. Raising her leg, she picked at the tiny sliver of wood, pulled it free. But that was it, she realized. The signal she'd been looking for, the divine sign. God had chosen to prick her with a little piece of wood. He'd pierced her skin, even drawn blood to break her concentration. Then he'd allowed her to pull the sliver free from her body. So she was meant to pull herself free from this place, right? Well, wasn't that what God the Father was trying to tell her? Of course. She pushed herself up, barely able to stand on her numb legs. As she shook her limbs and tried to get the blood flowing, she knew what she had to do. Opening the door, she flicked off the light and stepped out of that stuffy little room into the bright light. She hesitated, listened, but heard no sign of her father. So she was right. God had been sending her a message. He had pricked her with that sliver to make her wake up, to tell her this was her chance. The only one, given the way her father was watching her. She certainly wasn't going to get another opportunity as good as this, at least not for the next few days. Happy she'd been given such a definitive answer to her prayers, Suzanne crossed her small hall and entered her father's bedroom, where she walked around to the bedside table. For a second she feared it might not be there, but when she opened the drawer, there it was, the shiny black pistol. Suzanne ran one hand through her thick blonde hair, stared down at the weapon. What choice did she have? She snatched up the gun and grabbed the small box of bullets. Clutching them to her breast, she ran out of her father's room and into her own, where she threw open her closet door. First she pulled out a big blue sweater, dark blue of course, because the congregation frowned on bright colors, which she spread flat on her bed. Next, she placed the gun and bullets right in the middle of it, then carefully pulled up the sleeves and bottom and neck of the sweater. A tidy little bundle, she thought, smiling. The gun and bullets wrapped snugly inside. Next, she dove back into the closet and pulled out an extra pair of shoes and a small canvas duffel bag. This should work, she thought. Her dad had done the same thing last year, packing away a gun when he went up to visit those people in Idaho. You know, I think someday the government's going to come after us, he'd explained more than once to this little girl. They could lay siege upon us, she realized, for after all, God's true church was prophesied to be tortured. And if you need to, you run, Suzanne. Take some money and take a gun. We'll meet up later, just like our emergency plan says. But if you get on an airplane, be sure, baby doll, that you don't take the gun on board the plane. No, they'll catch you if you do that. Instead, you put the gun in your luggage and check the bag. That way, they won't discover you got a way to defend yourself. So now she dumped in some shoes and more clothes, and that was it. A full duffel, which she zipped up. Money. The duffel draped over her right shoulder, Suzanne raced down the hall and into the kitchen from the narrow spice cabinet just to the left of the stove. She took a large coffee can. No one at the congregation had credit cards. They were far too worldly, and Suzanne had seen the only one a couple of times in her entire life, and when she popped off the lid of the can, she found the whole thing stuffed with money, thousands and thousands of dollars crammed in there. She reached in, peeled off 8 or 9 $100 bills, thought better of it, and left that money on the shelf and took the entire can for herself. There was no sense running short. She'd need plenty for the ticket, and the three of them would probably go through the rest pretty quickly. Besides, her dad could always just dip into the coffers of the congregation and get more. And in fact, she thought, snatching the short pile of hundreds, he didn't even need that. The last thing she took was the sheet of paper with the names and the telephone numbers her father had written down. If she were caught at this point, she'd be in deep, deep trouble. She had a vision of her dad walking in and figuring out what she was doing. He'd rip open the bag, hurl the money against the floor, scream, maybe even wave the gun, and lock her in the prayer closet. She just had to get to the airport. She snatched her dad's car keys from a hook by the door and grabbed a jacket. She paused by a window, peered out from the compound. The bakery looked quiet. So did the meeting hall and the family dormitories. Okay, so her dad was still in his meeting down there, and everyone else was making dough, literally so, as if she were scurrying through the rain. Suzanne bowed her blonde head and darted outside to the car, her father's prized white Cadillac. Jumping in, she jammed the keys into the ignition, stomped on the gas, and the engine came to life like a tiger. Okay, she told herself. Don't be too nervous. She just had to get the car in reverse, back out of here, and suddenly she was shooting backward, right out of their drive and into the paved country road. She stomped on the brakes, brought the car to a screeching halt, then moved the gear shift to drive. Almost instantly, she was flying down the road, whooshing away. Wow! Suzanne screamed with delight. She swerved over to the right side of the road, saw the speedometer quickly climbing. Great, she thought. She'd be at the airport in Denver in no time, whereupon she'd catch the very first plane. With any luck, she realized she'd be in Minneapolis in a matter of a few hours. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.